All your tools and note-taking capabilities ready. Your event begins in less than 3 minutes.
In this video, we're going to learn how to make this welcome door hanger. We're going to start by tracing our letters for welcome onto our template fuse on the paper side and then adhering the sticky side to our letters. We're then going to cut the letters out and save them for later. Next up, we're going to do the other applique pieces. We are going to make our applique pieces for our welcome sign. I have drawn out some 8-point crosshairs. This is template fuse. This is the paper side. This is the fuse side. So you want to make sure that you draw on the paper side and not on the fuse side. So we're going to start with our Spinifex number 7, the 5-inch size. Now, we're going to draw the size of the template, and then we're going to use the template to stitch inside of that applique piece. Okay? So if I put it up here when I draw, that's not going to work because my foot is going to move this down by 1/4 of an inch. So I want to make sure that I'm 1/4 inch away from there. You could also use a stitching line disc to measure this. And then I want to line up my line up here. And I don't need to draw the whole template. I just need to draw the top of it. But I'm going to draw the whole template just so you can see what that's going to look like. Okay. Now this is going to help me line up my other ones. And I'm going to put this over here. I have the lines on my template that help me line up. Make sure that I am a 1/4 inch away. And I need to move up just a little bit. There we go. And now I can draw from this point here, just around, and I can come down here if I want to. That part's not necessary. And I'm going to do this for all of the petals. Now, if you use your stitching line discs, you will see that our stitching, when we get to the actual stitching of the shape, is going to stitch inside of the fabric. So I just wanted to show you what that was going to look like. So now we're going to cut this part out. And I use paper scissors to do this. Those are not my paper scissors. Time out while I get my paper scissors. They're right here. And we're not going to cut this completely out. We're just going to trim it up, because I don't need all of this template on my fabric. I just want to cut out a little bit outside. That was a little close, but that's all right. Okay, so now I have my piece that I can adhere to my fabric. So I'm going to get my flower fabric. This is my flower fabric. And I kind of want to find a big flower that I can hopefully get most of this on here, like that. And then just the fringes are going to be different. But I want to adhere this to the other side. So I'm looking for, I think that's my biggest flower. Well, here, maybe this one. It's the same flower. It's not as close to the edge. But we're going to flip our fabric over because we want to adhere this to the wrong side of the fabric. And I can see my flower right there. I'm going to kind of place this. You know, I could take my crosshair square and just kind of, I don't know if you'll be able to see if I mark the back of my fabric or not, but that's not centered. That's centered this way, and I can come out here. That I might be able to see. This mark I may be able to see. I don't know if this is going to work or not. Probably not. I can barely see these lines, but I really only need to see like 3 of them. One there, and move that up in there. So I've got this line, and that line. That actually worked. Okay, now I'm going to adhere it to the back of this fabric. So I hold it down for about 10 seconds. And then I move my iron and hold it down for about 10 seconds. And then I move my iron and I hold it down for about 10 seconds. And I just Kind of rub it around, make sure that it gets on there. I'm going to let this cool. Ooh, that's hot. Hot, 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 hot. I'm going to let it cool before I cut it out. I don't want to have a problem with that. And those letters are actually provided. This is almost cool, so I can kind of rough cut out of this fabric so that we don't have such a big piece to deal with. And then get that out of the way. It's almost cool. Almost, almost, almost. I have two scissors I'm going to use. They both have serrated edges. I find them really useful for cutting out applique. So there's these are, I don't know, maybe 4-inch, 6-inch scissors. And these are little tiny ones, and they are sharp all the way to the point. So it gets really nicely into these little areas if I need them. I'm going to tell you some tips about cutting out fabric or paper shapes even. You want to move your fabric, whatever you're cutting out. You don't want to move your scissors. Now, when I get up this close, I get kind of nervous. So I'm going to pop it right there. And that's gone almost to the point. There we go. And now I'm going to come in over here and I'm going to cut this one again, moving the fabric and not my scissors. Making the butterfly applique piece is a little bit more complicated. When we stitch it out, what I want to do is I want to draw line up right on the outside of the flower, a straight line that way, and then we'll stitch so I know how my template's lined up. So that's what it's going to look like when it's stitched out. And I want to extend this, right, because we flip our template, possibly a dark thread, and then you'll really be able to see the design. See this at this angle. There's flower number 1. Let's just draw a different line. There's my line that direction. And then if I line this up, and I line this up, so I'm lining the top of the template with the bottom of the template, and I'm going to draw another line. That gives me a reference line. And there's a line down here on the template and a line up here on the template. And I think that they correspond to each other. So I'm going to draw a line this way as well to see if that doesn't work. But we do have to make sure it's perpendicular. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to line up the template, those lines, and with the line on my template, which is really hard to see. That's why I put this little dark line there. Hope for the best. So we are going to draw around the template. Now, in order to help line us up, we are going to draw around what we would be stitching, right? Because we have that line here. So we want to be able to see where that is. And now we're going to line this up, the bottom and the top. And I'm looking at it at a different angle. It's just easier to see. Is that straight? That's not straight. Again, we want to draw Let's see, that should, there. Oops. Now that should have met right down there. I don't think it did. Is that me? Yeah, there we go. Okay, again, around the template. This has got to come down a little bit. That line at the top is really helping. There we go. And now we get the circle there. We go this way. Okay. This outer piece is going to make our butterfly, but we want a separate piece for the body. Now, this head would work, but this body doesn't, because this is the stitching line. If I use the template, I get a line that comes in here, and that's even smaller than the stitching line. So I need a body that's bigger. And I'm going to do it, I'm going to make a body at another place. It's just easier. So we're going to draw a straight line this way. Okay. So I'm going to line up my template. And I can use the template for the head, right? Because we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch in there. But for the body, I need something bigger than this. So I'm going to flip my template now. And so this will work for my head, right? Because when I stitch, I'll be stitching inside, right? So there we go. So this outer circle is perfect for the head. This is not good for the body. We need the body to be bigger. So what I'm going to do is take my spacing gauge and just come out here and make little 1/4 inch tick marks. You could do these smaller if you wanted to. You could do the template size and then your stitching size and cut in the middle of that. It would be, your shape would be 1/8 of an inch away, and your stitching line would be 1/8 of an inch away. Let's see what we got here. I'm not the best drawer person in the world. There we go. Let's connect these. I need another tick mark up here. Drawing was never my strength. I can connect the dots, but so this is going to be my body. So we can cut this out. I folded my fabric in half, aligning the selvages, and then where the fold was, I just trimmed that off. That left me with 2 pieces, and then I trimmed off the selvage. So I have 2 pieces that are the same size, and that's what we're going to make our door hanger out of. I have my 2 pieces of trimmed canvas, and on the short end of both pieces, on just one short end, I'm going to fold up a 1/2 inch. And the way that I do that so that it's even is I take my seam guide and there we go. There. That's a quarter of half an inch. And then I pin it like that on both sides of my seam guide, and then I move my seam guide. Make sure that that's even. And I do that until I get to the ends. And then I'm going to go to the right side and do the same thing. Then I take my iron and I come in between the pins. I'm using glass head pins, but I don't want to iron over my pins. It might scratch my iron. So I'm coming in like this, and then I can take out the pin to the left when the iron is on here, and then just move my iron over. And now I take a pin out and I move my iron over, let it sit there for a minute, take the pin out, move the iron over, and that's how I press in. This is going to be a hem. I have cut a piece of batting the same size as my fabric pieces, and I folded, not open, after you do this hem fold. And then I've tucked the batting up into that fold, and I've made sure that it's trimmed all the way around. I can't give you exact measurements because even though I had a half a yard of fabric, I could only get like 17 3/4 of an inch out of it. Because things are, cut little cattywampus, but that's okay. It's going to work out. So I'm going to turn this over, and then I'm going to take the other piece of canvas, and I'm going to lay it on top and align my top edges. So I'm going to line these up, and I'm going to repin or reclip. I just want that to be even all the way across the top. And then I'm going to clip on the sides as well. It's too hard for me to do this from this angle, but I'm also going to pin these sides, not the bottom yet. Then I'm going to sew a quarter of an inch down both sides, and then I sew the bottom last. The reason I do that is I want to make sure that my tops are even. And things shift, so if I were to stitch, say down this side, go down the bottom, come up the left side, it's possible this fabric could shift. So I always like to start at the top. So let me get this all pinned and then we will sew it together. I've clipped my sides and I'm now ready to sew. I'm going to sew down this side, and I'm just making sure that these are even. I need them to be as even as I can get them. It's not the end of the world if it's not perfect. I'm using a size 90 needle. You can also use a jeans needle if you want. Both of those work really well with this canvas fabric. So we have a layer of canvas, another layer of canvas, so the canvas pieces are right sides together, and then we have a layer of batting. I'm going to sew with what I call a fat quarter inch. So it's a full quarter inch. It's not a scant. I'm not going to do 3/8 or 5/8 of an inch or whatever. I'm just going to do a good quarter inch, nice thick quarter inch seam. I'm going to secure it at the top, and I'm going to sew all the way down to the bottom. So let's get that done and start down here a little bit. Take some back stitches. I'm using a polyester 40 weight thread. It's the closest that I could match to my canvas. So And this is my 1/4 inch foot, and as you can see, there's just a little bit of the fabric sticking out. I think it's going to be just fine. I'm using a 2.5 stitch length, so I haven't adjusted my stitch length. That's the default setting on this machine. I should probably raise my foot just a little bit on this. I like to do that when I'm stitching sandwiches. Just, I don't want my batting to pucker. So if I lessen the pressure of the foot a little bit, we're actually going to put the whole flag together, or not the flag, the whole door hanger together before we do any of the decorating on it. So I have 2 tricks to getting really pointy corners. Let's see if they work. The one trick is actually sewing to the end of the fabric, so it crosses here instead of stopping and pivoting. That's trick number 1. Then I'm going to do it on this side because I think you can see it better, because you can see the seam here. You can see the threads on the batting, where on this side you can't see them as well. And I cut at an angle this way. I kind of come up. You don't want to clip into your point. And then I turn it over, and I can barely see this, and I clip this way. So it's not exactly cut at a 40, it's kind of cut at a 45-degree angle, but you also have this kind of shaving going on here. And that's going to give you, hopefully, a really sharp corner when we turn this. So now we're going to unclip the top. Throw our little clippings away. Get our point turner out. Reach in, grab a corner, and pull. And then grab the other corner and pull. There we go. And now I'm going to take my finger and kind of pop it as much as I can to the corner. And then I'll take my point turner, reach into my pillowcase here, and just kind of work it out. And that, folks, is about as square as I can get it. Look how nice that looks. And now we're going to do this on the other side. Pull it out as best we can. Poke it with a finger. For a second, I didn't think that was going to square up, but it did. There we go. Now, I want to make sure that my other seams are as open as possible. So I take the rounded edge of the point turner, and I go in along the seam line, and I just kind of push it out to make sure that there's not a fold in there or something like that. Careful that you don't poke your hand with the pointy part. And then I do that on the side seams as well. And then we're going to press it. And see, my top is nice and even. This is the piece of canvas that we're going to use for the hanger to put the twine through. I didn't have enough of this fabric. You could shorten your flag or your banner if you wanted to. I just kind of liked it the way it was, so I'm just going to leave it. And this color is going to go with the applique pieces that we're going to put on the top anyway. So what I've done is it's about 17.5 inches, and then the ends are folded over 1/2 inch and pressed just like we pressed this canvas. And this is going to sit inside of here. And there's some extra room where we can kind of center it a little bit, but this is going to be folded too when it goes in there. So you want it to be as close to the ends as you can get, but this is going to be folded over. So you have to, there's a little bulk on the end as well. What I'm going to do is, since I fold, whoops, I'm going to drop it on the floor. I'm going to stitch these sides down. So I have a dark kind of bluish charcoal thread in my needle because I don't have a thread that matches this blue. It's kind of, it looks navy, but it's kind of a greenish dark blue color. And this is 3 inches wide. So whatever length you want it to be, plus an inch to fold these down 1/2 inch, and then you're 3 inches wide. So we're going to stitch this 1/4 inch away. Again, a regular 1/4 inch. Okay, I did something. My machine's being weird. Let me reset my settings. Let's go back to. There we go. There it is on the other side. So I'm going to stitch this the same, just to close off that hem. Then we're going to fold this in half. And we're going to change our thread back to the color that we had been using before. So fold this in half. You can press it if you want to. You don't really need to. It might help it hold better for the next step. So let me get my thread changed, and we'll be back for the next step. We are now going to put our hanger in, which is a casing, inside of our piece here. And I'm going to pin it in place, and to make sure that it's even, I'm going to put a clover clip on each side here. Put one right there. Let's see if there's, put one over here. And that's just going to help me make sure that everything is in the middle. So Okay, now this needs to stick out 3/4 of an inch all the way around, all the way down. So I'm actually going to measure to make sure that I'm at 3/4 of an inch. And that's 3/4. This is 3/4. You know what else would work? A tape. You could tape it down. There we go. Let's see if these clover clips are big enough. They are. So we're going to use these big clover clips. So my alternative to these giant clover clips is if you have big pins, which I don't, or you could tape this down with an embroidery tape, stitch it, and then remove the tape. You could glue it. There's all kinds of temporary glues you could use. So and then this has to go in just a little bit. There we go. I think we did it. Pins did not work for me. So I think my pins are too short. But I didn't want to use my really thin glass head pins that I normally use for piecing because they are so thin, they're just going to get so bent up. And these are the other thick pins that I had, but I think they're too short. So we are now going to sew along here. I'm going to take that away, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch from the edge. Now, this is really bulky in the beginning here, right? You've got 4 layers of canvas and a layer of batting in this little, just this little seam allowance here. So I didn't change the thread. Good thing we didn't go very far. Okay, go back a couple of stitches. There we go. Now what this, so this is a construction, and then the next step is we're going to applique our pieces down, we're going to iron them down, and then we're going to stitch them out. I'm so excited. Okay, I'll be back. I have taken a picture of my piece and moved things around just a little bit. So I'm going to start, I was going to start with the letters, but I'm going to start over here. So I'm going to kind of visually see where this is, where a little ruler will really help me so that I know where things go. And I can refer to the picture. So I'm going to set that like that. And I have the darker colors away So we're going to peel off this paper. And I want this dark away from the center. So I think it was about there. And now I have an ironing pad underneath here. It's actually the perfect size. So I'm just going to set my iron down. I'm lucky that I have a cordless iron. Count to about 10. Pick it up, move it over, count to about 10. Pick it up, move it over, count to about 10. And then I'm going to just kind of go like this. There we go. Recharge my iron. And I have to be careful on this one. I think I'll go this way. And we're going to go the two little slots on the ruler. The two little vertical lines will be there. I don't want this part of my flower to always be in the same orientation. So, but I want to be careful not to get my iron on the L. Let's see, those were like that. You could, if you wanted to, quilt the whole background before you put any of this on it, with straight lines, some cross hatching, things like that. I don't think it's necessary. I'm going to have quilting in all of the applique pieces, and that is, oops, more than enough room. Okay. Now we're going to work on the letters. Start with the W. A skosh off of the wings. You could make the body longer if you wanted to, but then when you quilt it, it's going to be a little awkward. So I'm going to let that completely cool, make sure that everything is adhered and nothing is sticking out. If it is, I'll come back with the iron and get it down there. And in the meantime, when this cools, we're all ready to quilt it. We are going to start quilting with our letters first. We're going to do those first. And I want to quilt these 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And the reason being, when I come up in the E and down here, I only have 1/4 of an inch in that space. So the lines would be really, really close together. So we're going to do 1/8 of an inch away. And the way I do that is by holding my template 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, and then by putting my foot up there, that's going to stitch 1/4 inch away from the edge, right? Because 1/8 and 1/8 is 1/4. And we need to pull not 1/4 of an inch, but a little bit less. We'll see how that goes. Now I'm using embroidery thread in my needle. And I'm using embroidery thread in my bobbin as well, but it's the color that I use to seam this whole thing together. And so I don't think it's going to show too much if it shows up at the top. But I tested my tension and everything looks really good, so I think we're okay. So I just took a couple of stitches in place to lock this in, and now I'm going to make sure everything is, I'm going to stitch down here. That's 1/4 of an inch, so I'm going to take 2 more stitches and see if that works. I'm going to turn this so you can see it. This is very pliable, so I couldn't get a huge thing. Oh, look, that works. So it's 2 stitches past what would be 1/4. So if I stop here and then take another stitch. And then before I turn, I want to take a stitch in place. And I didn't do that the last time. And then this, I'm going to measure 1/8 of an inch. That's about 1 more stitch. And now we're going to come this way. And we're going to come in here. That's too close. So I'm going to have to curve it a little bit. To go beyond that. Let's see. We should put it on this side. Oh, you know what? It'd probably help if I had the stable tape on the fabric and not on my hand. Okay. Right, and then this is 1/8 of an inch. There's the edge, and then take a couple of stitches. And then we're going to go this way. And then we're going to go this way. Let's see. Where that looks a little thick. No, that's pretty good. I'm going to take 1 more stitch that direction. There we go. It looks a little close. Okay, this I can come towards me 1 more stitch. And then in place and then over. And then this way. We're almost done. So I actually want to turn this so I can see when I get to the edge here. I went way too far. I'm way at the edge. So we're just going to move down a little bit. There we go. And then if I come this way, I should hit where I started. And then I'm going to go back a stitch or two. I'm going to pull my threads. I'm going to find a stiletto to pull my threads. And pull this up. And then I'm going to trim this because I knotted it. So that'll be fine. And then my beginning threads, here, I'm going to bury. You would think with this canvas that it would be very difficult to do that. It's not. This stuff is so smooth and pliable, and I mean, it acts just like cotton. So it's not like a stiff duck canvas. It's really nice to work with. I really enjoy it. So just like normal, do a knot. Go in where you came out. Go into the batting. Come out and pull the knot through. Yank on it just to make sure it got in there, which it did. I heard it. And there's our first letter. So it just makes the letter stand out more if you use a contrasting thread. And I thought that this lime green thread went really well with this lime green flower over here. So I'm going to continue doing the letters with the straight edges, and then we'll come back and do the O and the C. I am now going to stitch down the C and the O, and they're ovals, and the only oval I have happens to be inside the butterfly. So we have the inside the butterfly, then we also have this shape. So I've put stable tape on the top and the bottom of this, and I've marked the center horizontally and vertically with both the C and the O. So we're going to see what works best. I think this may work best for the inside if I did 1/4 at a time. And then I think this is going to work for the outside. Again, I'm going to stop at this line and then maybe adjust my template and continue down. And you could also do this freehand if you wanted. You know, that's not my thing, but you could do that if you wanted to. So let's start by pulling our threads and taking a couple of stitches, and then we'll align the template. Okay, let's get this out of the way. It's a long tail. So, let me get out my spacing gauge and see where this is going to come if I stitch along here. Well, I got to move up a little bit more. Okay, I think that may work. Now it's going to stitch too close to, not close enough to the edge. So again, move down a little farther. I think that's going to work. Wish me luck. Well, that looks good. See if we can continue that. So now I'm going to move it up this way. Again, make sure that we're stitching on the canvas when we come down. Yeah. That's really close. Okay. Now this one I think I'm going to have to stop a couple of times. I'm going to stitch down. I'm giving myself, oh, this works. I'm putting the center line on this template here against the foot. And I'm only going to stitch to this 45-degree angle line. There's a couple of lines on this. Let's move that way a little bit. There we go. That's really close to the edge. Now I can come up this way and stitch to, this is working out better than I thought. I'm going to stitch to the next line. There we go. We'll see how chunky it looks when we get done. And then that comes up here. And then we want to go straight across. Oh, looks a little chunky right there. And then we want to go back. So I don't know that part of the oval is going to work. I think it's going to make it too big. So we're going to try the inside of the butterfly. And I like to come in behind the foot so that I don't inadvertently grab the thread that's in my needle. Okay, so now, again, we're going to measure. That needs to come down a little bit. And on this, again, I think I can stitch to this line. There's a line on the oval, and I think I can stitch to there. And then I can stitch up to the line. Okay. I'm going to stitch up to this line. And then I'm going to stitch down to this line. And now I can go across. And I just want to make sure that I get where I started. Couple locking stitches, and we will pull our threads. Careful not to cut the starting threads, and we're going to cut the ending threads. They're very close to each other. There we go. So that worked out better than I thought it was going to. We're now going to do the inside of the butterfly, and this is going to be the last of the lime green. After this, we're going to switch colors. So, to get my butterfly template, which is here, and we are going to actually start down at the bottom. We're going to start down here. Oh, you should really put the, oh, it has stable tape on both sides. I forgot about that. Okay, we're lining up so that the circle part is on the circle of the head, okay? And then we want to make sure that this is that it's going to be stitching an eighth of an inch away, which it is. And then this is going to come up here. Or I mean a quarter of an inch, sorry. Okay. There we go. We're going to pull our thread. Come on, I don't want to do this twice. There we go. Okay. Do I have both threads? I do not. Okay. And now we're going to go around here and stop on the line that I've marked with a little permanent marker because so I can see it. And then we're going to come back here, line this up, line that up. So the line on the butterfly body goes right on what I just stitched. And this should take us back to where we started. There we go. Come back a couple stitches. When I pull these threads at the end, I make sure that I hold on to the fabric while I'm putting the needle up and down so things don't get out of control and it doesn't move.